Welcome back for another episode of Civility Wins, the Family Law Edition. And I am joined today with Jennifer Sotelo, and I'm going to read a little bit about her and then we'll get into our questions. Don't forget, please share, like, and subscribe. Okay. So we have here Jennifer Sotelo. She is the DST 1031 investments expert. That's what I would refer to her as. But she is a dynamic professional with a wealth of experience in commercial real estate investment, investment sales, and property management. As a licensed commercial real estate broker in both Florida and California, Jennifer's extensive background in analyzing valuations and brokering deals spans various property types, including self-storage facilities, medical office properties, and apartment buildings. Her comprehensive understanding of investment real estate allows her to swiftly evaluate investors' needs and deliver tailored solutions. She also holds her Series 22 and 63 securities licenses. She received the prestigious designation as a Certified Commercial Investment Manager or Member, or CCIM, in 2022, which is a rigorous program that includes an elite curriculum exemplifying a commitment to ethics and deal making in commercial real estate. She currently sits on the board of directors of the organization's West Coast District in Florida. And after spending 17 years in California, Jennifer moved back to her home state of Florida, where she resides in Tampa. She is a proud University of Miami alumni. Yes, same here.
Yay!
Go Canes.
Yep.
Having studied biology and public relations, she is an active member of her community, engaging in charitable causes, and she enjoys the outdoors with her Jack Russell Terrier, Sierra. Okay, so we will get into it. Thank you so much for being here with me, Jennifer. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. Course. So we're going to get into the discussion because this is very intriguing for me. And a lot of the viewers out there are business entrepreneurs, and they're all the time looking for strategies and ways of implementing when they're investing in real estate, et cetera. So we have our real estate expert here who is going to answer some questions for us. And the first question I have for you, Jennifer, is we hear about DSTs, or I've heard about DSTs before, but what exactly is a Delaware statutory trust, and how does it function as a real estate investment vehicle?
Yes. So, a Delaware statutory trust, to understand what a DST is, it's helpful to understand the concept of a 1031 exchange.
Mhm.
So, real estate investors have the opportunity when they sell their investment to defer capital gains tax through a process called a 1031 exchange. And the IRS allows you to do this. And they have, I guess they have certain deadlines as to when you need to accomplish this process, right? So you have 45 days to identify your new property. So when you sell your property, you can defer capital gains tax through a 1031 exchange. And then you have to buy what's called a like kind property. So it has to be like kind to the IRS is very broad term,
Mhm.
but it can be really any sort of investment property in the sense where it can be an apartment building. Even if you already owned an apartment building, you can still exchange into another investment property. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same asset type. So that's what I mean by the IRS is flexible in terms of what a like kind property is. It could be another apartment building. It could be a self-storage property. It could be a triple net property. Has to be an investment property. Well, the IRS also recognizes other types of investments. And one of those investments happens to be a Delaware statutory trust. It's a like kind investment, which is why the IRS recognizes it as a viable 1031 exchange. What a Delaware statutory trust is, it's a real estate investment. It's a legal entity where a group of investors can each own a fraction of an institutional grade property. And it's run and managed by an investment firm, which is known as a sponsor. It's a passive investment. The investment firm, the sponsor, manages the property for the investor. And the investor receives all the benefits of owning real estate. So they have all of the tax benefits, they receive income distribution, and then they also receive appreciation if the property appreciates when the investment sells, which a lot of times it does. So it's a great way for investors to defer capital gains tax out of the 1031 exchange, still be in a real estate investment, and they're buying into an institutional grade property. So this is a quality real estate investment. Think of, FedEx ground properties, Amazon distribution centers. These are investments which a typical real estate investor would not have access to on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So you're essentially investing with another group, with a group of investors. So that's the basis of what a Delaware statutory trust is.
Awesome. I appreciate that. That's very interesting.
It's a creative way for people to be able to defer capital gains tax. It's a passive investment, so the investor has no day-to-day responsibilities. So they don't have to search for the property. They don't have to do any due diligence on the property. They don't have to secure a loan. They don't have to manage the property during the investment period, and they don't have to worry about selling the property. It's all done by an investment firm. And typically these investment firms specialize in the asset class that they hold the property. There's a DST for every asset class, essentially. You name it, there's a DST. There's multifamily DSTs, self-storage DSTs, triple net DSTs, senior housing, student housing. You get the idea.
Wow.
So there's 90 different DSTs on the market, 50 different sponsors at any given time, and each sponsor typically focuses, they're experts in their asset class. They focus on their asset class. So a investment firm that focuses on self-storage will strictly stay in the self-storage realm. So and a lot of these investment firms have a track record of buying and selling these DSTs, right? So they've done it time and time again in the same asset class. Just like, you being specializing in, family legal services, right? You're an expert in your field. Same goes for these individuals, in each individual asset class.
Sounds like they would need to have like different specialties for sure, with having 90 special classes. It's and then things changing all the time, I'm sure, with laws and regulations, etc. So being an expert in a particular niche seems to be, it's like, you have the best of both worlds. You're able to invest and, do that, but without the extra additives, I think, of additional stress that's unnecessary. Having the experts do like the real legwork for you. So I think that's good.
Actually, you bring up an excellent point. I mean, typically the person who's investing in a DST is somebody who no longer, they may have been a real estate investor and they no longer want to deal with the day-to-day responsibilities of being a landlord, right? The terrible T's, as some people call it. tenants, trash, right? All of those things that come with being a landlord, you no longer have to worry about dealing with any of that. And then with 90 different DSTs on the market, you're able to diversify. So let's say you're coming out of your investment property, you sell your investment property for $1 million. You defer that capital gains tax into the DST. So you have $1 million going into your DST. We can essentially diversify over different asset classes. So we can put $200,000 in a self-storage, 200,000 in multifamily, 200,000 in a triple net property. So you have exposure to multiple types of asset classes. You can diversify and have access to a number of different types of institutional quality properties. So there's a lot of creative things we can do. And then the other benefit to investing in a DST is that you're deferring the capital gains tax. And this is the beauty of DST, of a 1031 exchange, I should say, is that you're deferring the capital gains tax. So there's some people who, when they're selling their investment property, they could have hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in capital gains tax. You're deferring that into your next investment property. So that gives you leverage. That's, hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions of dollars that you would have had to pay in taxes. That is leverage that you're using going into your next property, right? And
Yeah.
this is how a lot of people build their wealth. And then another great aspect of DSTs is that it is a great succession planning tool. So it qualifies for a step up in basis, meaning that when the individual, the investor passes away and wills that DST to their heirs, the heirs receive what's called a step up in basis. Completely eliminates the capital gains tax. So your heirs are no longer responsible for that capital gains tax. And so when they receive that DST, they can now take that and leverage it even further. So DSTs are also used as a way to build generational wealth over generations. And this
Wow.
is how some people continue to build their real estate portfolios
That's
by just
amazing. Yeah.
deferring capital gains tax.
You hit on a lot of great things like tax strategies, delaying taxes, creating wealth, succession planning, creating a generational, legacy. And those are a lot of things that I discuss with my clients on the estate planning side, that they have lots of questions about. So you on the DST side and working with, I'm sure, estate planning attorneys are one of your go-to referral partners, because I think that there's a lot of collaboration that can be had there to help as many families as possible. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's the beauty of real estate,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. And how
And
did you get into that? I'm so curious. How did you end up getting into what you're doing?
I was in commercial real estate as a commercial real estate broker, which is another referral source for me. I had always heard about DSTs. My clients participated in DSTs, right? As a commercial real estate broker, my clients would sell their property, do 1031 exchanges, and then invest in Delaware statutory trusts. So it's just being in the industry long enough. It's a very niche part of commercial real estate. And I think just being in the industry, you start to hear about different aspects of commercial real estate. And this is one that kind of, and then the DST company that I'm with, DST 1031 investments, were in terms of volume, one of the largest in the country. And so they came out and they recruited me. And of course, I jumped on board. It's, Delaware statutory trusts, as more people understand them, they're utilizing them. So it's a growing industry, so to speak.
For sure, for sure. So I want to ask you some tough questions for a moment, if you don't mind.
No.
Um, you stated a lot of the positives with DSTs, but just so that the audience out there can be aware, are there any risks or considerations that someone should be thinking about before they get involved with someone like you, or like questions that they may need to consider for the risk side of things?
Yes. Yeah, I love this question. So, one is that it's an illiquid investment, meaning there's no secondary market to sell your investment. So, each investment is typically 5 to 7 years. So, expect to be in the investment for that long. For instance, people always ask me, what do you mean by a secondary market? So think of the stock market, right? They have a secondary market. Stocks. You can either sell your stock for higher or lower to a possible buyer. That's a secondary market. So in DSTs, there's no formal secondary market. So could I help my investor find another investor to step in their place? Yes, possibly, but we don't recommend that as an exit strategy. So that's one. One also, DSTs follow the market. So, it's like any sort of real estate investment. So, something like higher property insurance, which a lot of states are seeing right now, might affect income on a multifamily property, for instance, if the property insurance goes up. Anything like that. And then I think that also I'm trying to think if there are any other you know, uh, maybe negatives. I think also the thing that it's a passive investment might be a negative for some people because they're accustomed to always having control over their own physical property. So, it's a passive investment. So investors essentially don't have any decision making on the day-to-day decisions that are being made on the property. So some people may feel like they're losing control or they, don't have control over the investment. So I guess that also could be considered a negative.
I do have a question for you in regards to the risks that came to mind. Um, so what happens if, because we know that they don't always perform the way we want them to, right? So what happens if the DST property underperforms or the sponsor mismanages the trust?
Yes. So, uh, if it underperforms, like let's say, property insurance increases and so for a period of time, the investor may receive less distribution. Um, Very rare that an investment firm mismanages the property. I mean, as I said before, a lot of them have track records. They focus on their specific asset class or typically experts. That's why it's important to work with a broker like myself. We specialize in DSTs. We know who the sponsors are in the space. Our company goes through a very stringent and rigorous due diligence process, vetting every sponsor, looking through their private placement memorandum, which is a legal document that each investor receives, outlines every aspect of the investment, the track record on the investment firm, the investment terms, the due diligence that was done to purchase the property. So we look through that. The investor gets a copy of that. They can look through that. But I I think also working with somebody like myself who specializes in the industry, I try to visit as many properties as I can. I really try to get to know the sponsors. My company has been in this industry for 25 years. Um, so it's really, working with experts in the space. And try, it's I always there's risks in a lot of things that we do, right? Investing is one of those risks. It's very similar to, surgery, right? I mean, the risks of going into surgery. You try to hire the best surgeon possible to do your surgery to mitigate all of those risks. And that's what you're doing. You just try to mitigate all of those risks as much as possible.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. I have two more questions for you. One still goes to the risks and considerations for people who are interested in learning more, maybe wanting to do a DST and connecting with you. So, can investors exit early with a DST, or are they locked in?
So yeah, it's an illiquid investment. So you are in it for that 5 to 7 year period. A lot of people, once they're done with that 5 to 7 years, they do another 1031 exchange and they roll their money right back into another DST. So a lot of people are, if you're in a passive investment, they're done with dealing with, the tenants and the toilets and trash, as I mentioned before, and they just want to be in a passive investment. So the 5 to 7 years is not an issue. So, but yeah, that's something I always tell my clients, just prepare to be in the investment for 5 to 7 years. Most people, it's not an issue for them at all.
Awesome. And for the audience out there, if they want to connect with you and learn more about you and your company, where could they go? And before you answer that question, actually, are there any upcoming projects that you have coming down the pike that you would like to notify the audience about?
Yeah, I'm always doing, if you're interested in hearing more about DSTs, I'm always doing talks. I'm happy to talk on a one-to-one basis or talk in a group setting. So you can always visit my LinkedIn page for more information on things that I'm working on. Or my contact information, but my LinkedIn page is Jennifer, spelled Jennifer. My last name Sotelo, S is in Sam, Otelo, Sotelo. So you can always find me on LinkedIn. And then my contact, J, and then my last name Sotelo at Cabin Securities. That's plural.com, CABIN, securities.com. Those are the two best ways to find me. I'm very good at responding to both of those. And then my phone number 310-988-8422.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share or yeah.
There's so much more, I think.
We need to do a part two.
Yeah, we need a part two. There's so much to go into, but I think that was a really good 30,000 foot overview of just the basics of DSTs, but there's so many creative ways to utilize them as a investment, as a real estate investor. Like I said, I'm happy to jump on and do a one-on-one call and go through all of those strategies. But I think it's good for all real estate investors to know that it's an option for them, because most people have no idea that you can defer capital gains tax this way.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Jennifer, and sharing such valuable, insightful advice. And I look forward to doing a part two with you. But again, Jennifer Sotelo, everyone. And we are, I think, done with another episode. You are watching another episode of Civility Wins, the Family Law Edition. Again, I'm Kristen Goss, founder and owner of KWG, Family Legal and Mediation Services. We are your knowledgeable, warm, and gracious attorneys. And please like, share, and subscribe until we see you next time. Take care.